What happens when you take a 30-year-old man, give him an existential crisis, and throw him in a studio? Well, you get LCD Soundsystem, of course. This dance rock band has one of the most consistent and influential discographies of all time, and they've only made 4 records. Today I'm going to be breaking down kind of the history of LCD Soundsystem and talk about each album, so hopefully by the end of this video, if you haven't listened to LCD Soundsystem before, you'll know exactly which album you should start with. The story of LCD Soundsystem actually starts way before LCD Soundsystem was even a thing. James Murphy dropped out of college to pursue music. He declined a Seinfeld writing opportunity to pursue music, but he wasn't making music. Aside from a couple dead-end bands, he wasn't doing anything that he wanted to do. Eventually, he was like, yo, I gotta start making something because I'm approaching my 30s and I'm not making anything out of myself. And so he decided to DJ. He made a record label called DFA Records. He developed a pretty interesting sound, you know, mixing like dance records with some cool little rock records, and he developed this kind of sound that LCD Soundsystem is kind of known for today. Eventually, James Murphy went to a party in New York, and what he saw shocked him. This young kid was playing his DJ mixes at this party, and this sent James Murphy down into a mental conflict, because at one end of the situation, he's like, hey, I'm the dance rock guy, you can't be doing that. But on the other end of the argument, James was like, well, that's not my music. This led to the very first LCD Soundsystem single. At age 32, James Murphy made Losing My Edge, and it is a pretty great piece of music. It's an 8-minute song about James Murphy talking about how he's getting too old, he's losing his edge. He was there, he was playing Daft Punk to the rock kids. So he recorded this single, a bunch of his peers told him that it was trash, but he released it anyway. So a couple singles later, a couple years later too, James Murphy decided to release the first LCD Soundsystem record titled LCD Soundsystem. This is a double album. I'd say this album is the most dance punk that LCD Soundsystem gets. There's a lot of groovy bass lines in there, a lot of distorted bass lines in there, lots of awesome punchy drums, awesome disco beats going on in this thing. LCD Soundsystem is kind of known for their longer tracks. This album has a perfect combination of the both. The first disc on the album is just a bunch of shorter tracks, while the second disc has a bunch of longer tracks. So shortly after James Murphy made LCD Soundsystem, he got commissioned by Nike to make some sort of workout mix type of deal. Nike was doing this promotion, and James Murphy was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna make a 45-minute song for this. And they're like, alright, man. Originally, the song was supposed to be like you're jogging and the song has some highs and has some lows. It's supposed to pace your run for you. I could picture myself jogging to this mix. Then James Murphy came around later on and said, I don't even jog. I just wanted to make a long song. So now it was time to make another LCD Soundsystem record. He had this first amazing record that got Grammy nominated with a breakout hit called Daft Punk Is Playing in My House. My house. And then he had this really cool commissioned beat. James Murphy, being the weird guy that he is, covered his entire studio in tinfoil. Just made the whole thing silver. And that is why the second album from LCD Soundsystem is called Sound of Silver. And this album is definitely what some people would say is LCD Soundsystem's best record. It has a great mix of techno vibes, rock vibes, and dance vibes. Us Versus Them is kind of like soft rock groove that's also super dancey. The first track, Get Innocuous, is pretty techno-ish if you ask me. And the breakout single from this album is a little known song called All My Friends, which is a 7-minute track with some looping pianos and just straight up vibes. And then also the song Someone Great. Do you remember when I talked about that Nike commissioned beat? There's kind of a part in that song that goes like, I'm not doing it justice, but there's a part in that song that was reused for Someone Great. It's a great song, one of my favorite LCD Soundsystem songs. This album was extremely well received by fans and critics. It was even nominated again for a Grammy. They didn't win it though, and then they came back, and they came back strong. James Murphy went to a mansion titled The Mansion to go record a brand new album, and it took 2 years. 2 years of recording, and this album that I'm referring to is This Is Happening. I like to say that this album is a little bit more popular than their last 2 albums. Definitely more synthier as well. Synth pop dance rock, you know? That's the type of vibe of this album. There's great tracks all around this thing. A lot of people will say that Dance Yrself Clean, the album opener, is the best LCD Soundsystem song of all time. And I just might have to agree with them because that song is absolutely incredible. There's also another song in this album called You Wanted a Hit. That's probably my favorite LCD Soundsystem song of all time. So this album was also obviously very well received by critics and fans. And around this time, unfortunately, there was a lot of talk of LCD Soundsystem maybe breaking up. Later later, they're like, actually, it is not a rumor. We're breaking up. They played their final live show at Madison Square Garden. It was almost like a 4-hour long live show. They made a documentary about it. And then there's this live album that came out with it. It was this whole ordeal. There was balloons. There were people crying at the scene. So that was it. The band was done. No more music. Or was it really done? You see, James Murphy was doing some work with David Bowie. He was set to produce Black Star, but that kind of fell through. But he still got to spend a lot of time with David Bowie. He was talking to David Bowie. He's like, dude, I think I should start back up LCD Soundsystem. It kind of makes me scared. I'm kind of scared of doing it. And then David Bowie, being the genius that he is like, dude, step outside your comfort zone. Dive into what makes you uncomfortable, I think was his exact words. James Murphy was like, all right, thanks, David. Peace. On January 4th, coincidentally my birthday, they were all like, yo, we're coming back. But before that, they released like a Christmas song. And then they headline Coachella, and then boom, American Dream dropped just after a couple of singles. This new album is pretty great. I actually forgot how good this album was. I remember I didn't vibe with it a whole lot when I first listened to it. This album still has that dance punk vibe, of course, that LCD Soundsystem is known for. But I almost feel like this album kind of has a more darker tone to it. There's a lot of great tracks on this thing that are just talking about like his mental issues and his social issues. But just because it kind of has a more darker tone doesn't mean you can't dance and vibe to these tracks. Everyone loved it, of course. It's LCD Soundsystem. Everyone's gonna love LCD Soundsystem. But after that, they released like a live album almost sort of called Electric Lady Sessions, and it's just like a bunch of studio sessions of them playing their old songs. Now we're all caught up, but I don't think American Dream is gonna be their last album. If you ever get the chance to see these guys live, do it. I saw them live with my mom. First off, I was the youngest person there. Everyone there was like 30, 40 plus, but it was incredible. Everyone was dancing their asses off. So hopefully they release another album soon. In terms of where you should start, I say start with Sound of Silver, and then figure it out from there. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you want to, which you should want to. I provide premium music content for people like you. See you in the next video.